Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how you can make a really simple and easy elderberry jam. And I always love it when recipes are quick and simple and no fuzz, and this is just another example of that. If you're new here on my channel, my name is Anya and I love sharing our homesteading journey and easy, healthy recipes just like this one. If you're new on my channel, please hit the subscribe button, like the video, and turn on the bell notification so you never miss another video. First, I'm going to show you the kind of items and tools that are helpful, not necessarily really needed, and then I'm going to show you the ingredients that we'll be using for this super delicious and healthy jam. I always like to have a bowl, and I could actually put everything into a pot right away, but the pots tend to be heavier and I want to weigh what I have. This is why I have a digital kitchen scale. Then I'm using a citrus juicer, a funnel, and a little ladle. And of course you'll need some canning jars and the appropriate lids. And I don't know that we need to really talk about the fork and the knife that I'm using, but I'm just mentioning these items to be complete here. So you're probably wondering, where are the elderberries? I have them in the freezer, so I'm just gonna go run and get them, and then I'll show you a little trick and explain to you why I put them in the freezer. Okay, so here are my elderberries. I put them on a cookie tray and put them in the freezer because they are easier to get off the stems. So you can actually almost just take your hand and crumble them off just like this. Really super easy. If they're fresh, if you didn't freeze them, don't have time to freeze them, don't have enough space in your freezer, whatever have you, you can always use, this is really loud, you can always use a fork, and actually, as you're seeing here, they come off a little bit easier and you won't get as many of the little stems on them. Now, I have in the past made elderberry jam with just using a fork to get the fresh elderberries, not frozen, off the stems, and every so often I will have these little tiny stems in there. And yes, elderberries are mildly toxic when eaten raw. I've put a few in my mouth and that's not a problem, but you don't want to eat the stems. If you just have very few little stems and you boil the jam for a while, it shouldn't hurt you at all. So I wouldn't freak out over little tiny pieces of stem. They're almost not really entirely to avoid. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get all the elderberries off the stems here. You have heard Tika run around in my kitchen when I am doing something here. Today I feel particularly bad for her because she got her tail caught in the car door, and that was not very nice. So she's a little bit needy today, and that's why she needs to stay close to mom. That's okay. I love having her in the kitchen. If you do end up with a little piece of stem in here, just like this little guy, no problem. You can always fish it out, and often once you start cooking your jam, you will see these come up and then you can still remove them. So I'm going to finish this entire tray. All my elderberries are now in this bowl. Let me put this back on the scale. So the bowl weighed about 177 grams. This is about 900 total. So that is about 730 grams. I can give you a quick pound here. It's about 1 pound and not quite 16 ounces. Now, I'm only mentioning this so you have a bit of a guideline. Everybody has a different preference for sweetness, but here's what I'm going to do. I have a lemon that I will juice, and I will add, this is a pretty good sized lemon, I will add the juice of half of this lemon into my elderberry jam, and because I am using carbon knives, I'm going to give this a quick rinse. Otherwise they start looking funny and then I need to clean them a little bit better. So giving them a quick rinse, but I love my coordinates. We can actually, at this point, put everything into my pot. I'm going to do this over my sink so that I don't get elderberries all over the kitchen. Pot is almost a little small for my elderberries, but that's about, I would say, 4 to 5 cups of elderberries. Adding the juice of half a lemon without the seeds. So let me just take those out. They're not bad for your health, but they would be funny if you had to chew on them. And now I'm adding my secret, not so secret ingredient, and that is frozen apple juice concentrate. You can get this in better grocery stores. If you can't find it, you can always use apple juice. However, then you have to fiddle a little bit more with the pectin and or with the sugar and do a few gel tests to make sure that you get a good gel for your jam. Why am I adding this? Because apple juice or apple juice concentrate enhances the flavor of all the fruits without actually tasting like apple in your jams. And what I will do is add about 3 tablespoons of this to my jam. It also adds a little bit of extra sweetness and pectin. That goes in there, and I will pop this back in the freezer real quick. I'm waiting with the pectin. I'm using the low or no sugar pectin. And I will add about a cup or so of sugar. Once I get this boiling, I can always adjust the sugar and add a little bit more if I find that it's a little bit too tart. Some people don't mind it. Some people like their jams to be a little bit on the sweeter side. So that is why I'm just giving you guidelines, and then you can adjust it from there. So we'll bring this over to the stove and start boiling. Now we'll simply bring this to a boil. This might take a while because the elderberries were frozen. We added the frozen apple juice concentrate. So it's going to take a moment before everything comes to a boil here. And if you have a bunch of elderberries and would rather have elderberry juice so that you can make elderberry syrup, I have a recipe and method how to make the most elderberry juice out of your elderberries, and you can watch this right here. While this is coming to a boil, I always like to stir it. First of all, it keeps the jam from spluttering over, but also at this point I can find any tiny little stems that may have found their way into this without me seeing that earlier, and that's the moment where you can pick them out because they will be a little bit more visible. And at this point I will add a tablespoon and a half of pectin. Stir that in. And continue boiling this for another few minutes. After a few minutes, I'm just going to do the gel test by putting a little bit of jam on a small plate and letting that cool down. And if that starts being firm around the edges and sort of not running evenly but thickening, then you know it's good. And if it's still too runny, you have a few options. You can either boil this a little bit longer, add a bit more sugar, or add a bit more pectin, or do all of the above. So here's my second gel test, and you can see that it is starting to run thick, although it hasn't really cooled down quite a bit, and the jam will always set once it absolutely cools down. I'm turning this off. Bring the jam really close to my jars with the funnel and start adding it to my sterilized jars. Have my lid, and I like to turn my jars upside down for just a little bit. And the reason I'm using a red towel is because you don't see the stains so much. Here I have almost 4 jars of this beautiful, healthy, delicious elderberry jam, super easy to make. And if you're wondering why I am not using any water bath canning method, I will upload a video next week in which I explain to you how you can tell whether you actually have botulism or any other organism in your jams, in your canned goods that you don't want there. Basically, how you can tell whether your canned goods, jam or otherwise, are good to eat. And if you're looking for more recipes and canning preservation, I have an entire playlist. I'll see you over there, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.